Have you ever witnessed a father stand before 40 guests at an upscale restaurant, look his daughter straight in the eye, and declare that he wished she had never been born? I have. Because that daughter was me. And that father? He's the CEO of a $47 million real estate empire. He said those words at my 32nd birthday party, in front of family, friends, and his business partners. No one spoke up. No one defended me. They just sat there in silence, or looked down at their plates, or smirked. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't beg for an explanation. I just sat in my 480 square foot rental apartment and realized something. I had spent 14 years trying to prove my worth to people who never wanted to see it. The next morning, I withdrew $43,000 from my savings account, signed a lease on a new apartment, and disappeared. They thought I was running away. They had no idea I was walking toward the moment that would flip their entire world upside down, in front of 500 people, at the most important event of their year. My name is Turner Townsend, and this is my story. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you are watching from. 3 weeks before my birthday, I sat at my father's dining table on February 8, 2025, watching a familiar scene unfold. Richard Townsend, CEO, founder, the man whose name appeared on bronze plaques across Denver, sat at the head of the table. My brother Marcus sat to his right, leaning forward with that eager expression he always wore when discussing business. "The Boulder expansion is moving forward," Marcus said, sliding a folder across the table. 12 million. We close in May. My father nodded, scanning the documents. "Good. What about the Highland project?" "On schedule. We're meeting with the zoning board next week." I sat to my father's left. I had been sitting there for 45 minutes. Neither of them had looked at me once. My mother, Eleanor, sat across from me, cutting her salmon into precise pieces. She didn't look up either. I cleared my throat. "The STEM program at my school just got approved for expansion. We're looking for volunteers if anyone—" "Nobody cares about kids in that neighborhood, Turner," Marcus interrupted without glancing my way. "They're not our clients." My father nodded in agreement, then turned back to Marcus. "Did you review the Highland blueprints?" And just like that, I disappeared again. I watched them talk for another hour. Market projections, property values, golf schedules. My mother asked Marcus about his upcoming trip to Aspen. My father mentioned a charity gala Townsend Properties was sponsoring in April. Not once did anyone ask me a single question. When I finally left that night, I sat in my car for 10 minutes before starting the engine. I had become so accustomed to being invisible in that house that I barely noticed anymore. But that night, something shifted. I started wondering, would anyone even realize if I stopped showing up? On March 1st, my phone rang at 11 p.m. Marcus. "Turner, I need a favor." No greeting, no, "How are you?" Just straight to the point. I put down the book I was reading. "What kind of favor?" "Dad has a charity event on March 20th. He needs a speech, something about education and community impact. You teach, so you know all that stuff. Can you write it?" I sat up straighter. "What's the charity?" "Does it matter? Just write something that sounds good. Dad needs it by Monday." "Marcus, that's 3 days away. Can you at least send me information about the program?" He sighed, impatient. "I don't have time for back and forth. Just write something inspiring. You're good with words." I should have said no. I should have told him I had my own work to do, my own students to prepare for, my own life that didn't revolve around making the Townsend family look good. Instead, I said, "Okay. Great. Email it to me by Sunday night." He hung up. I sat there staring at my phone. This was the 6th speech I had written for Townsend Properties in 3 years. Not once had my name appeared in any program. Not once had anyone thanked me beyond a brief text from Marcus. I opened my laptop and started writing. Because deep down, beneath all the frustration and exhaustion, there was still a small, stubborn part of me that hoped maybe this time would be different. Maybe this time they would see me. But as I typed the opening line, "Education is the foundation of every strong community," I realized I was writing words my father would never believe, for a cause he would never truly care about, to impress people who would never know I existed. On March 10th, my mother called. "Your father wants to throw you a nice birthday party, sweetheart, at the Capitol Grill, March 15th, 7 p.m. I froze. My father never threw parties for me. Really? Yes, 40 guests, family friends, and a few business associates. He wants to do something special this year. Something special. For me. The daughter he barely acknowledged at family dinners. The one whose career he had called a waste of potential more times than I could count. I wanted to believe it. God, I wanted to believe it so badly. "That sounds wonderful, Mom. Thank you." After we hung up, I sat on my apartment floor feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Maybe he was finally ready to see me. Maybe this was his way of making amends for all the dismissive comments, all the times he had introduced Marcus as my son, the vice president, and me as my daughter, the teacher. I went to Target and bought a navy dress for $180, nearly a third of what I budgeted for clothes each month. I practiced a short thank you speech in front of my bathroom mirror. "Thank you all for being here. Family means everything to me, and I'm grateful to have you in my life." While I was rehearsing, my phone buzzed. An email from Morrison Foundation. "Reminder: final rehearsal for the April 5th awards ceremony is scheduled for April 3rd at 2 p.m. Please confirm your attendance." I saved the email in a private folder I had labeled FF Personal. Foundations First. The nonprofit I had built over 6 years. The program that was about to change everything. But I didn't tell my family about it, not because I was ashamed, but because I knew they wouldn't care. March 15th, 2025, 7 p.m., the Capitol Grill in downtown Denver. I arrived 10 minutes early, wearing my new dress and the small pearl earrings my grandmother had given me before she passed. 40 guests filled the private dining room, 15 business partners, 10 members of Townsend Properties Board of Directors, and 15 family friends. My father sat at the head of the table. Marcus sat to his right, already deep in conversation about the Boulder project. I took my seat to my father's left. For the first 45 minutes, no one wished me happy birthday. Instead, I listened to my father and Marcus discuss property values, zoning laws, and their upcoming expansion into Wyoming. I watched my mother smile politely and nod at appropriate moments. I saw business partners lean in, eager to be part of the Townsend inner circle. At 7:50 p.m., one of my father's associates, a man named Gerald who owned a construction company, finally turned to me. "Turner, what do you do?" I opened my mouth to answer. "She teaches," Marcus said, cutting me off with a dismissive wave. "Elementary school, teacher salary, you know." He said it like it was a punchline. A few people chuckled. Others looked down at their plates, uncomfortable. My father didn't correct him. He didn't defend me. He just took a sip of his wine and changed the subject back to real estate. I sat there, smiling, pretending I didn't feel the humiliation burning in my chest. This wasn't a birthday party, this was a business dinner, and I was just the excuse to hold it. But I didn't know yet that the worst part was still coming. At 8:15 p.m., after dessert arrived, I stood up. I held my glass of water, I don't drink, and prepared to give the short thank you speech I had practiced. "I just want to say—" My father stood up abruptly, cutting me off. The room went silent. He looked directly at me. Not past me, not through me. At me. For the first time all night, I had his full attention. "Before you say anything, Turner, I need to say something first." My heart lifted for just a second. Maybe this was it. Maybe he was about to acknowledge me, to tell these 40 people that he was proud of his daughter. "You are a failure." His voice was calm, matter of fact. "You have wasted every opportunity I gave you. You chose to be a teacher, a profession with no future, no value, no impact. You are an embarrassment to the Townsend name. You are a stain on everything this family has built." He paused. The entire restaurant had gone silent. "I wish you had never been born." 40 people stared at me. Not one of them spoke. Not one of them stood up to defend me. Marcus looked down, smirking. My mother turned her face away, staring at the wall. Gerald, the man who had asked what I did, suddenly became very interested in his dessert plate. I stood there, holding my glass, feeling something inside me crack open. Not anger, not sadness, just emptiness. Like 32 years of my life had just been erased in front of an audience. I set my glass down carefully. I picked up my purse, and without saying a single word, I walked out of that restaurant. Behind me, I heard the conversation resume. Business as usual. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family or been told your dreams don't matter, leave a comment below. You're not alone, and trust me, this story is just getting started. Hit that subscribe button, because what happens next will change everything. Let's continue. At 10:30 p.m., I sat on the floor of my 480 square foot apartment in Capitol Hill. I didn't cry. I didn't call anyone. I just sat there in the dark, still wearing my $180 dress. Then I opened my laptop. I pulled up the email from Morrison Foundation, the one I had saved in my private folder, the one my family knew nothing about. Congratulations, Turner. You are one of 3 finalists for the 2025 Colorado Humanitarian Leadership Award. The ceremony will take place on April 5th at the Denver Business Council Annual Gala. We are honored to recognize your work with Foundations First and the impact you have made on 127 children in our community. I scrolled down to the list of sponsors. There it was. Townsend Properties, Diamond Sponsor, $150,000 annual contribution. My father and Marcus would be sitting in the front row. Table 1, VIP seating. They attended this gala every year. It was one of the most important networking events in Denver's business community. 500 CEOs, philanthropists, city council members, and community leaders. They would be there, in their tailored suits, shaking hands, making deals, protecting the Townsend reputation. And they had no idea that I would be on that stage. I didn't need to scream at them. I didn't need to send angry texts or write long emails explaining how much they had hurt me. I just needed to show up. I needed to let the truth reveal itself in front of 500 witnesses. For the first time since leaving that restaurant, I felt something other than emptiness. I felt clarity. I didn't need them to apologize. I didn't need them to suddenly see my worth. I just needed them to sit in that front row and watch 500 people stand up and applaud for the daughter they wished had never been born. March 16th, 2025, 7 a.m. I walked into Wells Fargo and withdrew $43,000 from my savings account. 14 years of careful budgeting, 14 years of living in small apartments, driving a used car, skipping vacations. Money I had saved because I never knew when my family might cut me off completely. By noon, I had signed a lease on a 1-bedroom apartment in Cherry Creek, $1,400 per month, 12-month commitment. It had tall windows, hardwood floors, and enough space for a proper home office. I spent the afternoon packing, clothes, laptop, the files for Foundations First, grant applications, student progress reports, partnership agreements. I left behind the family photos on my bookshelf. I didn't need reminders. At 4 p.m., I sent my mother a brief email. I've moved. I need time alone. Please don't contact me. She called 17 seconds later. I let it ring. She called again, and again, 7 times in 20 minutes. On the 8th call, I answered. Where are you? Her voice was tight with panic. I moved. What do you mean you moved? Where? Somewhere else. I'm not telling you. Turner, your father said those things because he was disappointed. Mom, you sat there and said nothing. You let him humiliate me in front of 40 people. You're overreacting. I'm not reacting. I am choosing. I paused. I'm choosing myself for the first time in my life. You can't just. I hung up. She called back immediately. I turned off my phone. For the first time in 32 years, I didn't explain myself. I didn't apologize. I didn't try to make anyone feel better about my decision. I just left. On March 18th, Marcus called. I had turned my phone back on to coordinate with Morrison Foundation, and his name appeared on my screen at 9 a.m. I almost didn't answer. But I was curious. Turner, what are you doing? Mom is worried sick. I'm fine. You can't just disappear like this. Family needs you. I almost laughed. You need me to write another speech? Silence. Then, Dad has an event at the end of the month. Can you help? There it was. Not are you okay? Not I'm sorry about what happened. Just another request for free labor. No. What? No, Marcus. I'm not writing anything for Dad. I'm not doing any more favors for Townsend Properties. You're being childish. Dad said those things because he wants you to grow up. I'm 32 years old. I am grown up. And I've decided I'm done working for free for people who don't respect me. You're going to regret this. Goodbye, Marcus. I hung up before he could respond. He didn't call back. He didn't text to ask if I was okay. He didn't apologize for laughing when our father humiliated me. That told me everything I needed to know. I sat in my new apartment, my space, my lease, my choice, and realized something important. They never missed me. They only missed what I could do for them. The speeches I wrote, the family gatherings I attended to make us look whole, the daughter who never complained, never demanded, never took up too much space. Well, I was about to take up a lot of space. On a stage, in front of 500 people, at their most important networking event of the year, and they still had no idea it was coming. On March 20th, I met Dr. Sarah Mitchell at Morrison Foundation's office in Lodo. Sarah had been my mentor for 4 years, since the day I had walked into her office with a 3-page proposal and a dream of bringing STEM education to underserved kids in Denver. She was the one who had believed in me when I had $200 in my bank account and no idea how to write a grant application. Turner. She smiled as I walked in, then studied my face. You look different. I moved. New apartment. Good different or running away different? I sat down across from her. Good different. She slid a folder across her desk. Then you're going to love this. We just received the Q1 impact report. 127 children completed your STEM program. 89% improved their math and science scores. 15 received scholarships to summer programs. I felt something warm spread through my chest. Pride. Real pride. We also received partnership commitments from 2 local universities, Sarah continued. They want to replicate your model. That's incredible. That's why you were nominated. She leaned forward. The selection committee was unanimous, Turner. Your model works. It's scalable, sustainable, and making real impact. You built this from nothing. She pulled out another document, a formal contract with Morrison Foundation's letterhead. This is your funding agreement. Section 4.2 covers public recognition and intellectual property rights. Everything you've built belongs to you. I took the contract, scanning the terms. $2.3 million over 6 years. My name listed as founder and executive director. Are you ready for the rehearsal on April 3rd? Sarah asked. I'm ready, she smiled. Turner, you don't need anyone to validate you, but on April 5th, 500 people are going to do it anyway. On April 2nd, 3 days before the gala, I stopped at a newsstand on my way to school and saw my face on the front page of the Denver Post Metro section. 3 finalists announced for 2025 Colorado Humanitarian Leadership Award. My photo was on the left. I was standing in one of the Foundation's first classrooms, surrounded by students working on a robotics project. The caption read, Turner Townsend, 32, founder of Foundation's First. I bought 3 copies. The article was thorough. Turner Townsend has spent 6 years building Foundation's First, a nonprofit STEM education program serving 127 underserved children in Denver. Funded by Morrison Foundation with $2.3 million over 6 years, the program has achieved an 89% improvement rate in student test scores and has become a model for educational equity in Colorado. There was a quote from Sarah. Turner represents the best of what philanthropy should be: quiet, consistent, and deeply impactful. She's not just teaching kids, she's changing systems. At the bottom of the article, in smaller text, the award ceremony will take place April 5th at the Denver Business Council Annual Gala. Major sponsors include Townsend Properties, Hartman Financial Group, and Peak Development Corporation. I sat in my car reading that line over and over. Townsend Properties, my father's company, the empire that was supposed to be his legacy. They were sponsoring the event where I would be honored for work they knew nothing about. I didn't send the article to my family. I didn't text Marcus or call my mother. I just folded one copy carefully and put it in my briefcase. Some people would read this article before the gala. Some would recognize my last name. And on April 5th, when I walked onto that stage, they would put the pieces together. April 3rd, 2 p.m., Denver Convention Center. The grand ballroom was massive. Vaulted ceilings, crystal chandeliers, space for 500 guests. Workers were setting up round tables with white linens and centerpieces. A stage stood at the front with a podium and a massive screen behind it. James Rodriguez, the director of communications for Denver Business Council, met me at the entrance. Turner, welcome. Let me walk you through the program. We went over the schedule. Cocktail hour at 6, dinner at 7, awards at 8. You'll be the second finalist called to the stage, James explained. We'll show a 3-minute video about Foundations first, then you'll give your speech. 3 minutes maximum. He showed me the video on his laptop. Footage of my students working on science experiments, parents giving testimonials, data graphics showing test score improvements. A young girl named Maya saying, Miss Townsend always tells us we can do anything. My throat tightened watching it. After your speech, you'll step to the side while we introduce the third finalist, James continued. Then the winner will be announced at the end. Questions? Can I see the seating chart? He pulled it up on his tablet. VIP tables are in front. Table 1 is reserved for our diamond sponsors. I looked at the names. Richard Townsend, CEO, Townsend Properties. Marcus Townsend, VP Development. Front row, center, 15 feet from the stage. Perfect, I said. James looked at me curiously. Do you know them? I used to. He didn't push further. See you Saturday at 6. And Turner, that video is powerful. You should be proud. I smiled. I am. April 5th, 2025, 4 p.m. I stood in my new apartment, looking at myself in the full-length mirror. Navy suit, simple, professional. I had bought it 2 weeks ago for $220, another chunk of my carefully managed budget. But this wasn't about the dress. This was about showing up as exactly who I was. A woman who had built something meaningful without anyone's permission. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. You're going to be amazing. See you at 6. I reviewed my speech one last time. 3 minutes. I had timed it 17 times over the past 2 days. Not because I was nervous about speaking, I spoke in front of students every day, but because I wanted every word to count. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about humiliating my father or proving Marcus wrong. It was about standing in my truth in front of people who had spent years telling me I didn't matter. Another text came through. Unknown number. Then I saw the message. Can you please call me back? I need to talk to you. Mom. My finger hovered over the screen. Then I turned off my phone. Not out of anger, not out of spite, but because I needed to focus on what mattered. The 127 kids who depended on Foundations First. The families who had trusted me with their children's education. The work I had built when everyone told me teaching was a waste. I looked at myself one more time in the mirror. This isn't about them, I said out loud. This is about the kids. I picked up my purse, grabbed my keys, and walked out the door. By 6 p.m., I would be standing in the same room as my father and brother. By 8 p.m., everything would change. 6 p.m., Denver Convention Center, Grand Ballroom. I arrived through the back entrance as James had instructed all finalists. The ballroom was already filling with guests. Men in tuxedos, women in evening gowns, the quiet hum of wealth and influence. 500 people, CEOs, philanthropists, city council members, the people who shaped Denver's business landscape. And there, on the massive screen behind the stage, the list of sponsors scrolled past. Townsend Properties, Diamond sponsor. I stood in the wings, hidden behind a black curtain, and watched the room fill. Table 1 sat directly in front of the stage, 15 feet away. 2 seats were still empty. Then I saw them. My father walked in first, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. His silver hair was perfectly styled. He shook hands with the mayor, clapped a board member on the shoulder, laughed at someone's joke. Marcus followed, wearing a navy suit similar to mine. He held a glass of champagne and scanned the room like he owned it. They took their seats at table 1, front row, center stage. My father leaned over to say something to the man next to him, probably about the Boulder project or the Wyoming expansion. Marcus pulled out his phone, smiling at something on the screen. Neither of them had any idea I was 30 feet away, watching them through a gap in the curtain. They thought this was just another networking event. Another opportunity to shake hands and make deals. Another night where the Townsend name opened doors. They had no idea that in 2 hours, their daughter, the one they wished had never been born, would walk onto that stage in front of every person in this room. I smiled. 7:15 p.m. Dinner had just ended. James Rodriguez walked onto the stage. The room quieted. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Denver Business Council Annual Gala. Tonight, we honor 3 individuals who have made extraordinary contributions to our community. The screen behind him displayed the Denver Business Council logo. Our first category is the Colorado Humanitarian Leadership Award. This year, we received 47 nominations from across the state. Our 3 finalists represent the best of what Denver has to offer: innovation, dedication, and measurable impact. Polite applause. My father and Marcus clapped without much interest, already looking slightly bored. This was the part of the gala they tolerated before the real networking began. Let me introduce our first finalist. The lights dimmed. A video played, a different nonprofit, a different story. I watched my father check his phone under the table. Marcus whispered something to the person next to him. The first finalist gave her speech. 3 minutes. Applause. Then James returned to the podium. And now, our second finalist. My heart started pounding. This nominee has spent 6 years building a program that has transformed the lives of 127 children in Denver. Her work has been recognized by Morrison Foundation with $2.3 million in funding and has become a model for educational equity across Colorado. The screen went dark. Please watch this short video about Foundations First. I stood in the wings, my hands steady at my sides. The video began. Images of my classroom, students working on robotics projects, parents giving testimonials, and then a close-up of a student saying, "Miss Townsend always tells us we can do anything." At table 1, my father's head turned slightly toward the screen. I know what you're thinking. What happens when her father sees her on that stage? Stay with me. This is the moment everything changes. If you're enjoying this story, please like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Let's continue. The video continued on the massive screen. A narrator's voice. Foundations First was built on one belief. Every child deserves access to quality education, regardless of their zip code. More footage. Students presenting science projects. A graph showing 89% improvement in test scores. A parent saying, "My daughter went from failing math to getting an A. This program changed her life." Then the numbers. 127 children served. $2.3 million in funding from Morrison Foundation, partnerships with 2 major universities. At table 1, Marcus had stopped looking at his phone. He was staring at the screen. My father leaned forward slightly. The narrator continued. Foundations First provides free STEM education, mentorship, and resources to underserved communities. The program has a 95% retention rate and has helped 15 students earn scholarships to competitive summer programs. Another parent appeared on screen. Miss Townsend believed in my son when no one else did. She saw potential where others saw problems. The camera cut to a young girl, Maya, one of my first students, standing in the Foundation's first classroom. Miss Townsend always tells us we can do anything, and I believe her. The screen faded to black. Then white text appeared. Founder and Executive Director, Turner Townsend. I watched through the curtain as my father's entire body went rigid. Marcus's mouth opened slightly. The man sitting next to my father, Gerald, the same man who had been at my birthday dinner, looked from the screen to table 1 with sudden recognition. A few people in the audience began whispering. Some had read the Denver Post article. They knew the name Townsend. James returned to the podium smiling. "Please welcome to the stage, Turner Townsend." The spotlight hit the wings where I stood. I stepped out into the light. 500 people stood up. The applause was immediate, thunderous. I walked across the stage. Steady steps, head high, exactly as I had practiced. The lights were bright, but I could still see the audience clearly. At table 1, my father sat frozen, his champagne glass halfway to his mouth. Marcus stared at me like he was seeing a ghost. Eleanor, I spotted her at table 2, had her hand over her mouth. I reached the podium. The applause continued. I smiled and raised one hand in a small wave, waiting for the room to quiet. It took almost 30 seconds. When the audience finally settled back into their seats, I looked out at 500 faces. Business leaders, community organizers, people who had built careers on reputation and respect. And in the front row, 15 feet away, sat the man who had told me he wished I had never been born. I didn't look at him. I looked past him, at the people in the back, at the faces that wanted to hear what I had to say. "Thank you." My voice was steady, clear. 6 years ago, I was teaching at a public elementary school in Denver. One of my students, an 8-year-old girl named Maya, told me she wanted to be an engineer. But when I asked her what an engineer does, she said, "I don't know. I've never met one." The room was silent. Everyone was listening. That's when I realized, talent is everywhere. Opportunity is not. I paused, letting the words settle. Foundations First started with 12 kids in a borrowed classroom. Today, we serve 127 children. 89% have improved their test scores. 15 have received scholarships to STEM summer camps. Applause again. I waited for it to fade. This work wouldn't be possible without Morrison Foundation, who believed in this vision when no one else did. I saw Sarah in the audience, smiling. She nodded once. But more than that, it wouldn't be possible without the kids themselves. They show up every week, ready to learn, ready to try, ready to believe that they can be scientists and engineers and leaders, even when the world tells them they can't. I glanced down at my notes, then back up at the audience. I didn't build this program for recognition. I built it because those kids deserve a chance. Because talent doesn't care about your zip code or your parents' income or what school you go to. Talent is everywhere. We just have to choose to see it. More applause. I could see people nodding, leaning forward in their seats. Over the past 6 years, I've watched students who were told they were bad at math solve complex equations. I've watched kids who had never touched a computer build functioning robots. I've watched parents cry when their children brought home report cards with grades they never thought possible. My voice didn't waver. I had practiced this moment, but it wasn't rehearsed emotion, it was real. That's what Foundations First is about. Not charity, not pity, just opportunity. Just a chance for kids to see what they're capable of when someone believes in them. I paused, looking out at the audience. Because here's what I've learned. You don't need permission to make a difference. You don't need approval. You just need to show up, do the work, and trust that the impact will speak for itself. The room erupted in applause again. People weren't just clapping politely anymore. They were standing. All except 2 people at table 1. I waited for the applause to settle. Then I took a breath and continued. For a long time, I believed that my worth was defined by what others thought of me. I believed that if I worked hard enough, if I proved myself enough, if I made myself small enough and quiet enough and convenient enough, I would finally be seen. The room had gone very still, but I was wrong. My worth was never up for debate. It was always there, in the work I do, in the lives I touch, in the kids who now believe they can be engineers and scientists and leaders. I saw several people in the audience nodding. A woman in the 3rd row was wiping her eyes. Tonight, I stand here not because I need anyone's approval, but because 127 kids needed someone to believe in them, and I chose to be that person. I paused, letting the words land. So to anyone watching who has ever been told they're not enough, that their dreams are too small, that their work doesn't matter, I want you to know. You don't need permission to be valuable. You don't need someone else's validation to know your worth. You just need to do the work that matters to you and trust that the right people will see it. The entire room stood up, 500 people applauding, except for 2. My father sat motionless, his face pale. Marcus had his head down, staring at the table. I looked directly at them for the first time, not with anger, not with triumph, just with quiet certainty. Then I looked back at the audience, smiled, and said, "Thank you." As I walked off the stage, the applause followed me into the wings. The moment I stepped off stage, Sarah was there, pulling me into a hug. "You were perfect," she whispered. Before I could respond, people started approaching. A CEO from a tech company, a city council member, a woman who ran a foundation I had read about in the Denver Post. "Turner, I've been following your work. We should talk about partnership opportunities. Do you have plans to expand to other cities? My company would love to sponsor your next cohort." I shook hands, exchanged business cards, answered questions. Everyone wanted to know about Foundations First, about the model, about how they could help. Through the crowd, I could see table 1. My father sat rigid in his chair, staring straight ahead. Marcus was trying to have a conversation with someone, but the man politely excused himself and walked toward me instead. It was Gerald, the construction company owner who had been at my birthday dinner 3 weeks ago. "Turner." He extended his hand. "I had no idea you were Richard's daughter. The work you're doing is remarkable." "Thank you." "I mean it. We need more people like you in this city." He glanced back at table 1, then lowered his voice. "I'm sorry about what happened at your birthday. That was inappropriate." I nodded. "I appreciate that." He handed me his card. "If you ever need construction support for facility expansion, call me. Pro bono." As he walked away, I saw Eleanor making her way through the crowd toward me, but before she could reach me, another group of people stopped to introduce themselves. I glanced at my father one more time. He was standing now, trying to leave, but people kept stopping him, asking about Foundations First, asking about his daughter. He couldn't escape. At 8:45 p.m., after the final award had been announced, I stood in the reception area talking with Sarah and 2 university program directors. Then I felt a hand on my elbow. My father. "We need to talk." His voice was low, controlled, the voice he used when he was trying not to make a scene. I turned to face him. No, we don't. Turner. He glanced around at the people nearby, then tried to pull me toward a corner. Not here. I didn't move. I'm in the middle of a conversation. His jaw tightened. You just made this family look terrible in front of 500 people. I didn't do anything. I stood on a stage and talked about my work. If you feel embarrassed, that's your problem, not mine. You can't just... I'm 32 years old. I'm not a child you can order around anymore. My voice was calm, steady. I built foundations first on my own. I earned this recognition on my own, and I will continue this work with or without you. He opened his mouth to argue, but I held up one hand. If you want to have a relationship with me, you need to apologize, publicly, in front of the people who watched you humiliate me at my birthday dinner. Until then, don't contact me. You're being unreasonable. No, I'm being clear. Those are my boundaries. You can respect them or not. Your choice. I turned back to Sarah and the program directors, effectively ending the conversation. My father stood there for 5 seconds, then walked away. I watched him go. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty for setting a boundary. I didn't feel the need to apologize or soften my words or make him feel better. I just felt free. I left the convention center at 9:30 p.m. The valet brought my car around, a 2018 Honda Civic with 87,000 miles. Not impressive by Townsend standards, but it was mine, paid off, reliable. I was unlocking the door when I heard footsteps behind me. Turner, wait. Marcus. I turned. He looked uncomfortable, hands in his pockets, not quite meeting my eyes. I didn't know you were doing all of this. You didn't know because you never asked. I know, He stopped, struggling for words. I'm sorry about what Dad said at your birthday. Are you sorry about what you said? About calling me a teacher with a teacher's salary in front of his business partners? About laughing when he humiliated me? He looked down. I didn't think you'd take it so seriously. That's the problem, Marcus. You never thought I was serious. About my work, about my students, about anything that mattered to me. That's not... You called me 7 times in 3 years. Every single time you needed something, a speech, a favor, free labor. You never once asked how I was doing. He was quiet. I don't need you to apologize because you're embarrassed, I continued. I need you to apologize because you actually understand that what you did was wrong. And until you do, we have nothing to say to each other. I opened my car door. Turner, I'm not angry, Marcus. I'm just done accepting less than I deserve. I got in my car and drove away. In the rearview mirror, I saw him standing in the parking lot, watching me leave. For the first time, I wasn't the one left behind. April 6, 2025. The Denver Post ran a front-page story. Turner Townsend wins 2025 Humanitarian Award. Daughter of Townsend Properties CEO, honored for education work. The article included a photo of me accepting the award, smiling, holding the crystal trophy. Below that, a smaller photo of my father and Marcus, sitting at table 1, looking stunned. The article was detailed. Turner Townsend, 32, founder of Foundations First, was recognized Saturday night for her 6-year commitment to educational equity in Denver. Her program, funded by Morrison Foundation with $2.3 million, serves 127 underserved children and has achieved an 89% improvement rate in student test scores. There was a quote from Sarah. Turner represents the best of what philanthropy should be: quiet, consistent, and deeply impactful. She's not just teaching kids, she's changing systems. And at the end, Townsend Properties, a diamond sponsor of the event, declined to comment. That last line said everything. By noon, I had received 47 emails, 12 CEOs wanting to discuss partnerships, 8 organizations asking about replicating the Foundation's first model, 3 universities proposing research collaborations. Morrison Foundation called at 2 p.m. Sarah's voice was excited. Turner, the board met this morning. We're increasing your funding to $3.1 million for the next 3 years. We want to help you expand to 3 more cities. I sat in my new apartment with windows and space and silence, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not validation from my family, not approval from my father, just pure, uncomplicated pride in work I had built with my own hands. That evening, my phone buzzed, a text from a number I didn't recognize. "This is Gerald. Just wanted you to know, you're the talk of Denver, in the best way." On April 8th, my mother forwarded me an email. She didn't write anything, just forwarded it. It was from 3 members of Townsend Properties Board of Directors to my father. "Richard, we need to schedule a meeting to discuss the company's public image following Saturday's events. Several partners have reached out with concerns about corporate culture and family values. This requires immediate attention." I didn't respond to my mother, but I saved the email. 2 days later, another article appeared in the Denver Business Journal. Townsend Properties faces questions after gala incident. The article was careful, professional. Sources close to the family report that Richard Townsend's daughter, Turner Townsend, was honored at the Denver Business Council Gala, an event her father's company sponsored, despite apparent estrangement. Questions have emerged about the company's commitment to community values and family culture. On April 10th, I received a call from Gerald. "Turner, I thought you should know. Hartman Financial just pulled out of the Boulder project, $8 million contract. They cited concerns about corporate values and leadership culture." "I didn't ask for that," I said quietly. "I know, but people are paying attention. When a CEO publicly dismisses his daughter's work, then she wins a major humanitarian award at an event he sponsored, that's a story." The next day, Marcus was removed from the speaker lineup at a major real estate conference. The organizers sent a brief email. "Due to scheduling conflicts and image considerations, we've decided to move in a different direction." I didn't celebrate these consequences. I didn't feel triumphant. But I also didn't feel guilty. Actions have consequences. That's not revenge. That's just reality. On April 12th, a handwritten letter arrived at my new apartment. I didn't know how my mother got the address, but there it was, cream-colored stationery, her careful cursive. "Dear Turner, I am so proud of you. I'm sorry I didn't protect you. I hope we can talk. Love, Mom." I read it 3 times. Then I called her. "Hello?" Her voice was tentative. "You said you're proud of me." "I am. Turner, I had no idea you were doing all of this. Where were you when Dad humiliated me in front of 40 people?" Silence. "Mom, you sat there. You didn't say anything. You didn't defend me. You just turned away. I didn't know what to do. You could have said something. You could have told him he was wrong. But you chose silence." I heard her crying softly on the other end. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Are you sorry because you feel guilty? Or are you sorry because you actually understand that what you did was wrong?" "Both. Turner, I was wrong. I should have stood up for you. I should have—" "Mom, I need to see actions, not just words. I need you to prove that you're willing to stand up for me, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it means disagreeing with Dad or Marcus." "What do you need me to do?" I thought for a moment. "Come see Foundations first. Come see what I built. Not because you want to fix our relationship, but because you actually want to understand my work." "I will. When?" "I'll text you the address. You can come next Thursday at 3 p.m. "Thank you, Turner." "I'm not promising anything, Mom. I'm just leaving the door open a crack. What you do with that is up to you." On April 15th, I received an email from my father. Subject line, "Moving forward." "Turner, I think we should meet and discuss the future. I'm prepared to offer Townsend Properties support for Foundations First. We can provide funding, resources, and connections. Let me know when you're available. Richard." I read it twice. Then I wrote back, "Thank you for your offer. However, Foundations First is not accepting funding from Townsend Properties at this time. If you want to rebuild our relationship, you need to start with a public apology. To me, in front of the people who witnessed you humiliate me at my birthday dinner. Until then, I'm not available to meet. Turner. I hit send before I could second guess myself. He didn't respond. 3 days passed, then a week, then 2 weeks. No apology, no follow-up email, nothing. And that told me everything I needed to know. He didn't want to repair our relationship. He wanted to control the narrative. He wanted to buy his way back into my life without actually taking responsibility for his actions. But I wasn't for sale anymore. On May 1st, I received a forwarded email from Eleanor. It was from the Townsend Properties Board to my father. Richard, the board has voted to require all senior leadership to complete a professional development course on workplace culture and ethical leadership. This is non-negotiable. My father was being held accountable, not by me, but by the people whose respect he actually cared about. I didn't gloat. I didn't send him a sarcastic message. I just filed the email away and went back to work. Some people change when they face consequences. Some people double down. My father had made his choice. May 2025. Foundations. First expanded to 3 new schools. I hired 2 full-time teachers. Both were former educators who had left the profession due to burnout, and both were thrilled to work for a program that actually valued their expertise. Morrison Foundation announced plans to replicate the foundation's first model in 5 other cities across Colorado. Sarah called it the most successful educational equity program we've funded in a decade. I received an invitation to speak at TEDx Denver in September. The topic: Building Impact Without Approval. On May 15th, I signed a lease on a bigger apartment. 2 bedrooms, 100 square feet, $1 to $800 per month. 1 bedroom for me. 1 for a home office where I could work on grant applications and program development without sitting on my living room floor. I bought a desk from IKEA. I hung my Humanitarian Leadership Award on the wall above it. Not because I needed the validation, but because it reminded me I had built something real. The students kept showing up every week. Maya, the girl who wanted to be an engineer, was now tutoring younger students in robotics. A boy named Jamal, who had struggled with reading, was now devouring science books. One afternoon, a parent pulled me aside after class. "Miss Townsend, I just want you to know, my son talks about you all the time. He says you're the first teacher who ever believed he was smart." I felt my throat tighten. He is smart. I know that now. Thank you for seeing it. That night, I sat in my new apartment and realized something. I was happy. Not because my family had apologized, not because I had won some battle, but because I had built a life I was proud of, with or without their approval. On June 3rd, my mother showed up at Foundation's first unannounced. I was in the middle of a lesson on basic circuits when I saw her standing in the doorway. She looked nervous, clutching her purse like a shield. I finished the lesson, helped the students clean up, then walked over to her. "Hi, Mom." "Hi." She looked around the classroom, at the posters on the walls, the bins of supplies, the students' projects displayed on tables. This is wonderful, Turner. Thank you. Can I see more?" I gave her a tour, showed her the curriculum, introduced her to my 2 new teachers, let her watch a group of students present their final projects, robots that could navigate a simple maze. She didn't say much. She just watched, taking it all in. Afterward, we sat in my small office. "I didn't know," she said quietly. "I didn't know you had built all of this." "You didn't know because you never asked." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I'm sorry, Turner. I'm sorry I didn't see you. I'm sorry I didn't protect you." I waited. "I know you said you need to see actions," she continued, "so I'm asking, what can I do?" I thought about it. "Can you volunteer? 1 afternoon a week, help with math tutoring." "Yes, absolutely." "This isn't about fixing our relationship overnight, Mom. This is about showing up, consistently." "I understand." She started the following week. Every Thursday at 3 p.m., she arrived with a notebook and a patient smile. She worked with students who struggled with fractions and percentages. She learned their names, she celebrated their progress. It wasn't forgiveness yet, but it was a beginning. On August 12th, I received a letter in the mail, handwritten, from Marcus. Turner, I've spent the past 4 months thinking about what I did, about how I treated you, about the person I became when I was trying to impress Dad. I'm sorry for dismissing your work. I'm sorry for laughing when he humiliated you. I'm sorry for only calling when I needed something. I don't have a good excuse. I was selfish and cruel, and you deserved better. I just wanted you to know. I was wrong. Marcus. I read it 3 times. It was different from my mother's letter. More specific. More honest. No excuses. But I didn't respond right away. Because words are easy. Actions are harder. 2 weeks later, Marcus showed up at a foundation's first open house. He didn't announce himself. He just sat in the back row and watched students present their projects. Afterward, he came up to me. Hi. Hi. I read about this event in the newsletter. I hope it's okay that I came. It's a public event. He nodded, awkward. Your students are impressive. They are. I'd like to come to the next one, if that's okay. I studied him. He looked different, less polished, less confident, more uncertain. You can come, I said. But I'm not ready to have a relationship with you yet. I need to see that you've actually changed. I understand. He came to the next event, and the one after that. He sat in the back, didn't try to talk to me, just watched. I wasn't ready to forgive him, but I was willing to see if he was serious about change, because that's what boundaries are, not walls, but doors. Doors that only open when someone proves they're worth letting in. November 2025, 8 months after the gala. Foundations. First now serves 240 students across 6 schools. 3 other cities have adopted our model. Morrison Foundation increased our funding again, $3.8 million over the next 4 years. My mother still volunteers every Thursday. She's become one of our most reliable tutors. We have coffee sometimes after her shift. We're rebuilding, slowly, on new terms. Marcus has attended 4 Foundation's first events. He donated $5,000 to our scholarship fund, anonymously, but I found out. We've had 2 brief conversations. I'm not ready for more than that. Maybe someday. My father hasn't apologized. He hasn't reached out. And I've made peace with the possibility that he never will. Because here's what I've learned. I don't need his approval to be valuable. I don't need his recognition to know my work matters. I don't need him to change for me to be happy. I built a life I'm proud of. I set boundaries that protect my peace. I surrounded myself with people who see my worth, not because I had to prove it, but because it was always there. Some people will never see you, and that's okay. You don't need everyone to understand your value. You just need to understand it yourself. On my 33rd birthday, I celebrated with my students. We had cake in the classroom. Maya gave me a card that said, "Thank you for teaching us that we matter." I didn't think about my father's words from a year ago. I didn't replay that moment at the Capitol Grill. I just looked at those 127 faces, now 240, and knew I made the right choice. I chose myself. I chose my work. I chose the kids who needed someone to believe in them. And I would make that choice again, every single time. Thank you for watching my story. If you've ever been underestimated, dismissed, or told you're not enough, remember this. Your worth is not up for debate. Build your life on your own terms. Set boundaries. Protect your peace. And never wait for someone else's approval to be proud of who you are. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe, like, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your story. Until next time, take care of yourself. You deserve it.